Here's something wild. We've made hydration harder than taxes. Everywhere you look, someone's carrying a water bottle the size of a toddler. Smart lids, chug timers, gallon jugs whispering, "Keep going," like we're training for a marathon we never signed up for. We used to drink water because we were thirsty. Now we track it, measure it, color code it, and share it on social like it's a personality test. Hydration has become a lifestyle and maybe even a morality play. And underneath all the trends and tumbler drops and what I drink in a day videos, there's a bigger question no one seems to ask. Where did the 8 glasses a day rule even come from? Who wrote it? Who decided it? And why do we act like we'll shrivel into raisins without our Stanleys? Welcome to Lies We Bought.
Because they sold it, we bought it, and now we're unpacking it.
Let's make it personal. What's your water story? Were you a kid who carried a flimsy plastic bottle that crinkled every time you took a sip? Or did you grow up believing that dehydration was lurking around every corner? Or maybe you're one of the adults who now travels with a 40-ounce emotional support bottle that could double as gym equipment. Because somewhere along the way, water simply stopped being simple. It became a lifestyle. It became a personality trait. It became a metric on your phone and a badge of honor on your desk. But before hydration was a side hustle, it was just water. And that brings us to where it all started. It's 1945. World War II has just ended, and the U.S. was rebuilding, physically, emotionally, and nutritionally. For a decade, Americans had lived with ration books and wartime scarcity. Butter, sugar, and meat were all luxuries. Coffee was currency. Every calorie had a purpose. When the war ended, there was a collective hunger for more. More food, more freedom, more comfort. But there was also a lingering fear of not having enough. The government saw nutrition not just as health, but as a national security. A well-fed citizen was a productive one. During the war in 1940, the U.S. created the Food and Nutrition Board, a division of the National Research Council, tasked with calculating exactly what Americans needed to eat to survive and thrive. At first, their focus was the battlefield. Soldiers, nurses, pilots. How much protein keeps a man marching? How many calories sustain a bomber crew? But when the peace came, the science turned inward, towards the kitchen table. A few years later, the board published the first recommended dietary allowances, a blueprint for feeding a recovering nation. It listed values for everything: vitamins, minerals, proteins, and yes, water. Here's the now famous line. A suitable allowance of water for adults is 2.5 liters daily in most instances. That's roughly 84 ounces or 8 8-ounce glasses. But the sentence that follows is the one history ignored. It read, "Most of this quantity is contained in prepared foods." What? Translation: they weren't telling people to drink 8 glasses of plain water. They were reminding them to stay nourished through soups, fruits, vegetables, and milk. It wasn't hydration advice. It was ration math. But as America stepped into the glossy glow of post-war prosperity, science and industry became best friends. Like we discussed in our last episode, white coats and clipboards became the new symbol of truth. If the government, or a man in a lab coat, said something was good for you, it was. This was the era of order, charts, rules, guidance. From vitamins to housework, everything came with instructions. And the people followed them because rules felt safe after years of chaos. Soon the 8 glasses note slipped out of every government paperwork and into everyday life. It appeared in Reader's Digest, Good Housekeeping, rebranded as a daily health commandment for the modern homemaker. The wellness ideal of the 1950s wasn't about self care, it was about duty. A good mother, a good worker, a good citizen all started their day hydrated, fortified, and ready to serve. By the time schools adopted the guideline in their health posters, the origin was already forgotten. The wartime nuance, the fact that most of this comes from food, was stripped away and replaced with a clean motivational number. Because a rule that fits on a poster, like 8 glasses a day, is easier to remember than a paragraph that needs context. This is what I like to call drunk auntie marketing. If your drunk auntie can read it after a martini and still understand it, the message is perfect. And that's how wartime nutrition memo meant for soldiers became truth for civilians. A footnote became a lifestyle, and a lie marched home, quietly, efficiently, wrapped in patriotic science. By the 1970s, 8 glasses a day had become a wellness ritual. It showed up in diet books, morning talk shows, even doctor's office had posters, catchy, easy to remember, and completely unchallenged. And just when the rule had a chokehold on America, the fitness world joined in. Gatorade practically invented the "you're dehydrated and don't even know it" panic. Suddenly, every jog around the block required electrolytes, sugar, and a lightning bolt logo. It was brilliant. But before the 1970s, bottled water in America was a punchline. People laughed at the idea of paying for something that came out of your tap for free. If you carried a bottle, it was because you were either hiking or hungover. But in the late 1970s, marketers saw an opportunity hiding in plain sight. They realized water wasn't just a drink, it could be a status symbol. Evian led the charge, imported from France, bottled in the Alps, and advertised like luxury perfume. Their early ads didn't mention hydration. They promised refinement, purity so light it floats, and newer ones like the Mountain of Youth. By the 1990s, water had gone from utility to identity. Perrier leaned into the nightlife with bubbles and neon. Fiji wrapped itself in tropical escapism, and Smartwater launched with vapor distillation and lowercase branding that made it feel like an Apple product for your kidneys. The alkaline water showed up, promising to balance our pH like we are a malfunctioning pool filter. And the numbers? They worked. In 1976, the U.S. bottled water market was worth about $45 million. By 2000, take a guess. Over $4 billion. And according to the beverage marketing corporations, Americans now drink more bottled water than soda. The global bottled water industry is worth over $350 billion today, projected to hit more than $500 billion in 2023. That's more GDP than some countries, all from liquid that flows freely from most kitchen sinks. Bottled water became shorthand for discipline, control, and aspiration. If soda was reckless, bottled water was redemption. Ad campaigns didn't talk about refreshment, they talked about responsibility. Dasani said it was designed to make you feel good. Nestle water was pure life. And once bottled water became a moral high ground, the next evolution was obvious. Water didn't have to stay plain. Companies soon realized that they could sell more than hydration. They could sell customization. The first big player was Crystal Light, launched in 1982 by General Foods. It was marketed as low-calorie, guilt-free, and a way to make your water exciting. And it quickly became a pantry staple for every aerobics-era kitchen in America. It was the original water makeover. The product that proved you could sell flavored hydration as a lifestyle. Decades later, companies like Mio or Liquid IV took the same idea and modernized it. Mio turned water into a customizable, squeezable accessory to go, and Liquid IV branded hydration like a performance tool. Electrolytes, recovery, efficiency, optimization. It was no longer just water. It was water 2.0. By the 2000s, hydration wasn't a health habit, it was a brand identity. Carrying the right bottle became quite a social signal. Celebrities posed with Saratoga, models carried Fiji. Wellness influencers preached the gospel of half your body weight in ounces. And then came Water Talk, the place where hydration turned into a dessert menu. Cotton candy water, birthday cake water, 20 pumps of syrup with a splash of H2O. Suddenly, water had influencers. People reviewing ice cubes like they were Michelin meals. And don't get me wrong, I'm not hating. I watch every single one of those videos. Hydration also has merch now. Stanley's, Yetis, hydro flasks, and a Walla bottle as seen on TikTok that can be used to defend off home intruders. You buy your aesthetic in ounces, matte, gradient, limited edition. I've seen people in queue for color drops like it's concert tickets to Taylor Swift. And in 2023, Stanley sold $750 million worth of drinkware. Drinking vessels, $750 million. Hydration has officially outperformed hydration. Meanwhile, plastic bottles piled up in the ocean. Americans are tossing around 60 million plastic bottles a day. Line them up, and that would stretch thousands of miles, more than halfway around the planet. And here's where it gets a little bit messier. Well, even messier. A lot of what we're buying in bottled water is tap water. Dasani, Coca-Cola, Aquafina, PepsiCo, both have multiple factories that draw from municipal water systems, bottled, branded, and marked up more than 200%. In other words, we took something that cost a fraction of a penny per gallon and started paying more for it than gasoline. As much as I hate math, let's do some. A gallon of tap water costs less than 1 cent. A gallon of bottled water, anywhere from $1 to $9. That's a markup between 100 and 900 times. You could fill a Stanley cup every day for a year for less than $1, but we're paying hundreds for the privilege. So, why do we do it? Because for decades they told us we had to. Finally, in 2002, one man finally asked, "Is this even true?" Dr. Heinz Valton, a kidney physiologist at Dartmouth Medical School, had spent his career studying fluid balance. He wasn't selling water bottles, he just wanted the facts. So he did what any science would do. He traced the claim. And he found nothing. No studies, no clinical trials, not even a cited source, just repetition. A wellness echo chamber that had turned advice into dogma. He published his findings in the American Journal of Physiology with a title that makes me smile. Drink at least 8 glasses of water a day. Really? Valton concluded that there was no scientific evidence for the 8 by 8. He also warned that too much water could actually be harmful for people, especially those with kidney or heart conditions. And get this, after decades of studying hydration, he didn't even drink 8 glasses a day because science said that he didn't need to. But by the time hydration wasn't about science anymore and it was about branding, it made him the enemy of a billion-dollar industry. Bottled water companies spend billions shaping that belief. They bought prime shelf space, sponsored marathons, plastered ads on every billboard and gym wall. And when the environmental groups pushed back, the industry simply pivoted. Rebranding went from convenience to wellness because selling an identity only works if people stop trusting the alternative. Before bottled water became a lifestyle, we drank from the fountains, at school, in the park, at the library. You would finish playing a basketball game, and then you would press the silver button and drink straight from the stream. No brand, no label, just water. But once bottled water entered the picture, something strange happened. It wasn't a coincidence. In the 1980s, as bottled water sales took off, cities quietly began cutting maintenance budgets for drinking fountains. And about a decade later, schools were removing them altogether. They cited liability or hygiene. Parks replaced fountains with vending machines, and the airports, they were practically designed to make you thirsty. I don't know if you've ever been to SeaTac, but all I'm going to say is Gate N. You couldn't refill your bottle, but you could definitely buy one. Infrastructure shifted from public to private, from shared right to individual purchase, from we all have access to you get what you can afford. What used to be a civic promise became a business opportunity. It's not that bottled water created the problem, it's that it filled the vacuum left by decades of neglect. Public trust eroded alongside public infrastructure. So when brands said tap water is risky, people believed them because the fountains really were broken and the pipes were old, and the government wasn't keeping up. Tap water in the U.S. is regulated under EPA's Safe Drinking Water Act, which requires public water systems to test far more frequently for contaminants and to publish those results in annual consumer confidence reports. Bottled water is regulated by the FDA as a packaged food product, and while its quality standards are required to be at least as strict as tap water, bottled water companies aren't required to publish the same level of routine testing or disclose their water source unless asked. So the irony is that we weren't necessarily buying safer water, we were buying more convenient water with much better marketing. It's strange, isn't it? The very thing that was supposed to keep us safe ended up making us skeptical of safety itself. We started questioning the tap instead of questioning the ads. Now, I'm not immune to any of this. If you've been watching the video, you will notice that I have 4 Stanleys stacked up right in front of me because somewhere along the line, I decided hydration needed a chaperone. I carry them from room to room like I'm escorting a small child who cannot be trusted alone. My best friend Madge is basically my hydration accountability partner. When we were trekking across Europe, she was horrified by how little water I needed to survive, especially considering the amount of Prosecco and Aperol spritzes I was consuming. Is our obsession with hydration about thirst, or could it possibly be about control? In a chaotic world, water is something we can track, measure, achieve. It gives us structure. And that's why I find this so fascinating. Even as I sit here sipping from my Stanley between takes, I get it. It's comforting, it's familiar, and it's a ritual that feels productive. But the truth, most of us are already hydrated enough. So yeah, my Stanleys are staying right here, but maybe now every time I pick it up, I'm reminded that I'm not just holding water, I'm holding an entire century of marketing. By the way, have you guys seen that Instagram? There's a pee chart and it tells you to match your urine color to how hydrated you are. That idea actually came from the military hydration protocols. The US Army used urine colored charts to monitor soldiers in the desert because of heat conditions. But the wellness charter you see online, that's a civilian spinoff. So, what do we do with all of this? First, take a breath. Then maybe a sip, not because your app told you to, but because you wanted to. If you listened to my last episode, again, I'm not a doctor. I am just someone who got tired of chasing myths disguised as wellness. So again, take this as perspective and not prescription. If you're thirsty, drink water. If you're not, don't. Your body already knows what it needs. You've just been trained not to trust it. So whether your bottle is stainless steel, glass, or the kind that you grab from the fridge door, just remember it's water and not a moral test. And it definitely doesn't need a slogan. Another lie bought and sold, and now maybe one you can finally retire. Next time, we're seeing red. And not just because we're looking at your ex's Instagram.